Hello and welcome back to Tech Football. I'm George, and today I will be ranking all of Nottingham Forest summer transfers. Once they made 21 signings, a new record. I think that's utterly mental. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, in total for this transfer window, Nottingham Forest spent 145 million on those transfers. They brought in 21 signings in total, a record-breaking transfer window for them. And though some were loaned, some were on free, they did spend big money on some players. And their biggest signing, the most expensive, was Morgan Gibbs-White for 30 million from Wolves to Forest. And personally, I believe this is a great bit of business for the club. I think Gibbs-White, he's a fairly young, good attacking midfielder, which gives them creativity in the middle of the park. And also I think that he will fit very well into Nottingham Forest system, as he previously worked under Steve Cooper at Swansea and performed there, which gave him his chance in a Wolves shirt. And although they're selling him now, I do think that in the future for Forest, Morgan Gibbs-White will do very well, and Wolves will regret selling him. The next player in Nottingham Forest transfer spending spree is Taiwo Iwanui. He joined the club from Union Berlin for around 18.5 million. He was previously at Liverpool when he got loaned to Berlin, who he did well enough to earn a permanent move there. And now, after impressing for a couple seasons in Germany, he's earned himself a permanent move to the Premier League in Nottingham Forest, and I think he'll do very well there. He's a strong, physical, fast striker. He's got a powerful shot. Maybe if he was a bit more clinical, it would be ideal. And I think overall he's a perfect fit in a striker for the Premier League, and I think he'll be one of the better mid-table strikers, and definitely a lot better than whoever Nottingham Forest were going to play up front without him. So yeah, I think he'll be one of the best strikers in the league, and definitely an upgrade. And then if they targeted someone like Adam Armstrong, who really isn't the finisher that Forest need. Moving on to the third most expensive signing of Nottingham Forest summer, and it is Nico Williams from Liverpool for around 18 million. And to be honest, I believe this is their best summer signing. It brings stability to their back five, but also as a wing back, he gets up the pitch, whips in good crosses. He's got a bit of creativity on the right hand side of the pitch, and I do think he might be the best player they've signed this window. And if not, then he'll have the biggest impact on that team and prove himself to be a real gem that Forest have uncovered. And I think he'll play very well for them. I've seen him so far this season perform very well in games. I think he's looked like one of Forest's best players, and from here on out, there's only up for him to go. The fourth signing of Nottingham Forest transfer window is probably one of my favourites that the club has done. I think he's one of the better players they brought in yet again, and it is the Nigerian forward Emmanuel Dennis. And he's a fast, quick striker. He was previously at Club Brugge. He got sold after doing pretty well to, I think it was Colne, and from there it didn't really go too well for him. But since he moved to Watford in the Premier League, he was on fire last season. He obviously had team linked to teams like West Ham as well, but the fact that Forest were the ones to be able to get him shows serious intent by the club, and I do think it proves that they aren't messing around with a transfer business. They want to prove themselves to be really efficient in the window, and I think they've got a great player in Dennis. Next up is Aurel Mangala, who joined the club from Stuttgart for around 12 million, I think. 10-12 million, I think, is the correct price range. And he's a DR Congo / Belgian national team player. He hasn't actually declared for either, hasn't been picked for either yet. And I think he's a decent midfielder. He started the first 3 games. He didn't start them. He played the first 3 games for Forest and looked pretty good. But since then, he hasn't been in the squad over the last 3 games. So I don't know what's happened there. Maybe he's not quite as good as Steve Cooper thought. But overall, I think he's a decent midfield signing, and if he doesn't start, he's definitely good for squad depth. Yet another Bundesliga transfer for Nottingham Forest in their fifth most expensive transfer. They got Moussa Niakate from FC Mainz, and to me, he has looked brilliant so far. I haven't been able to watch all Nottingham Forest games, but the ones I've watched, he's looked very good. Aggressive, strong, fast, French centre-back, and I think he might need to add a layer of coolness and composure to his game, but so far in that back five, he's added the bite, determination and aggression that Nottingham Forest need to keep them up in the Premier League this season, and hopefully push on and have a very good few years in the Premier League to come. in order of the most expensive transfer, the first player to not come from Bundesliga or Premier League opposition is, I'm going to have to look up the name here so I don't quite remember it, is Nicolas Lunu. And to be fair, he arrived for 9 million. I honestly don't know too much about him, but from the first tier in French football, 9 million, fairly young fullback. I think he must be a solid player, and if he doesn't start, obviously behind Nico Williams, I think he adds good squad depth for them in that position. The next most expensive signing in Nottingham Forest transfer window is Lewis O'Brien from Huddersfield, and firstly, this is the first transfer that I'm not truly convinced about. It must have been decent to earn himself a near 9 million transfer fee, but I think overall he's probably championship level, and he will add decent squad depth for Nottingham Forest, but maybe not the top quality of player they're looking for with all these signings. Nottingham Forest's next most expensive signing is an experienced midfield pick, Swiss international from the Serie A, from Atalanta, Remo Freuler. I think he's a decent midfielder, 30 years old, he brings experience to that team. I think he fights for the ball, he wants to win his battles, he's got good technical quality as well, which I think will boost Nottingham Forest midfield, and I think overall he'll be a good experienced player to have around all the younger players they've been bringing in. And obviously he has experience of football at a higher level, which will be very helpful for the club. Now time for some double action, as the next two most expensive Nottingham Forest signings were both left backs, one being Omar Richards for just under 8 million from Bayern Munich, and obviously he moved there from Reading a couple of years ago, didn't quite work out for him, couldn't just get into that Bayern team, obviously with Lucas Hernandez and other great players that Bayern have, just couldn't quite get into that team. And they also brought in Renan Lodi for a 4.5 million loan fee, and to sign such a quality player from a Champions League team like Atletico, I think is very good business. It shows that there's a good project going on at Nottingham Forest if a player like that wants to join the club. Brazilian Samba Flair, left back, he is basically Atletico's version of Marcelo. Obviously not quite the same level, but I think he will be very good for the club and a very good, hopefully, starting left back. So it'd be great to watch in the Premier League. Next up for Nottingham Forest is striker Yu Jo Hwang, who joins from Bordeaux, who got relegated or were already in the French second tier, I don't exactly know. And to be honest, this is another one of the signings I'm not quite too sure about, and that's probably because I don't know too much about him, but I think he does add some decent quality squad depth in the striker position for Nottingham Forest. Next up is the signing of Willy Bolly from Wolves, a fairly experienced centre-back from another Premier League club. I think is vital for Nottingham Forest. I'm just not sure they got the right man, as Wolves were willing to sell him for only 2.3 million, which is quite cheap, and I do think this is because he has some attitude problems and he refused to show up for Wolves on some occasions, and I think that attitude isn't quite what you want in the dressing room of a newly promoted club. So I do have some reservations about this transfer, but he is a decent player. He did used to be a fan favourite at Molineux, but that's kind of faded away a bit. But I do think he's decent, just got to sort out the attitude. Next player, just like his teammate Lewis O'Brien before him, from Huddersfield. This time it is Toffolo from Huddersfield, a right wing back, and to be honest, I just don't see him getting into the team much at all. I'm guessing he's just been brought in for squad depth. Semi-decent Championship player, but I reckon Championship is probably about his level. Don't really see him playing regular Premier League football, which I don't think he's been brought in for. He is definitely a backup or cover right back, and overall it's decent business because it's really cheap and it does give some additional squad depth to Nottingham Forest, who will have a long season ahead of them in the Premier League. Now, yet again, I'm going to talk about two players together, one being Brandon Aguilar and the other being Josh Bowler. Talking about Brandon Aguilar, he's a decent, young, attacking midfielder. He's been loaned straight back out to the club that Forest bought him from, and obviously he won't be ready for the Premier League yet, but maybe in the future he can be a star player for Nottingham Forest. But Josh Bowler, after a season Championship and being their best player in League One from Blackpool, I think he is a decent player. I'm not sure he's quite Premier League level or Premier League ready, and that's probably why Nottingham Forest have opted to loan him back out to Greek side Olympiacos in the Champions League, which to me that's just a bit of a weird deal. Like, you've signed a player who's been League One Championship quality throughout his career so far, obviously the best player at Blackpool in both those leagues, but the fact that you signed him but somehow loaned him out to a Champions League club, like an English winger in Greece, it's just a bit weird to me. But I guess good on Josh Bowley to get to play in the Champions League and eventually for a club like Nottingham Forest. Arguably the biggest name that Nottingham Forest brought in this summer is Jesse Lingard from Man United. The 29-year-old, he's obviously a good player. His career probably quite didn't go out the way he planned after starting really well at United, kind of dropped off a bit. He just didn't really come to his full potential, I guess, in the end. And despite that, he is still a decent player. We're sure that he still got it, like at West Ham when he went on loan. But overall, I'm not sure this is the right signing for Nottingham Forest. I just don't think he's the type of player to dig in for a relegation battle if they end up quite low down near the end of the season. And I just think that he's not quite the attitude you want in your changing room, but he is still a good player, but maybe not the best changing room fit for Nottingham Forest. Another free signing for Nottingham Forest is Cheikhik Kouyaté from Crystal Palace. I think that he's a good, solid CDM, can cover at centre-back if needed in their 5-back system. Overall, he's got good Premier League experience, which I think is needed for Nottingham Forest this season. Not sure he's quite the best player. I'm not sure he should be starting every game. I think he would be better in the midfield than someone like Jack Colback, but they've brought in other players to do that job, so I think he'll be a good player to have in the squad. He'll be a leader in the dressing room. He's got the experience, and I think overall he'll be a decent signing for the club. The last 4 players at Nottingham Forest signed, I'm actually going to talk about them in pairs. The first 2 being a pair of goalkeepers, and that is Wayne Hennessy, brought in from Burnley just to cover if Dean Henderson gets injured, who is the other keeper they brought in on loan from Manchester United. Is pretty good so far. I think he's saved 2, maybe 3 penalties, which is excellent so early in the season. However, I have heard there's a bit of an ego problem there, but at the moment it doesn't seem to be affecting the changing room or players' performances on the pitch. So overall, so far, a very, very good signing for Nottingham Forest. Wayne Hennessy, yeah, like I said, he'll add squad depth and play the cup games to arrest Henderson. And overall, both fairly good signings for the club. Finally, the last signing of Nottingham Forest transfer window is Loic Balde. He comes from French club Nice, I believe, and I do apologise, I said it would be 2-2 for these last 2. However, it was only 1 player, I miscounted, and to be fair, Loic Balde, he's 22 now, he's a massive monster of a centre-back, got the French connection with Niakate, who've already signed, and I do think he will be impressive for the clubs. He's big, he's strong, physical centre-back, and I do believe that he will do very well for Nottingham Forest. He's a good young player, so that means they can get many years out of him. They have only got him on a loan though, and I do think if he does well, they should seriously consider signing him back if he does do well for them in the Premier League this season. Time to wrap up this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and just help out the channel any way you can. I do want you guys to tell me though if there's any of these players you think I've rated too highly or maybe not rated enough. I do like to see what you guys comment about these types of things, so please tell me what you think, and remember, every little helps. Thanks for watching.